What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Very exciting news. Yeah, you guys can probably already tell from the title of the video, but I got a couple boxes right here next to me, and I'll be opening them up and showing you guys what I have ordered. But long story short, we're making more power.
More power? You goddamn right, more power! More power, baby! More power, baby! More power, baby! More power!
I already have a dyno tune scheduled with Bren Tuning up in Massachusetts, and yeah, it's a couple weeks out. So what I wanted to do today, getting tuned is a complicated process, but more importantly, understanding what parts are going onto your car and what modifications are going onto your car is also super, super important. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick run through of everything I'm going to be putting on for this upcoming tune, what expected power I'm going to make, what the prep process is going to be. We'll have a separate video for the installation of everything, because that's going to be a long day because I have 4 or 5 different pieces going on all at the same time. But I want to go through each of the individual modifications that I'm adding to this car, and why I chose them, why I chose that brand, and what each one has to do in the engine as an actual, a function. So let's get right into it. Yeah, let's get this unboxing going. All right, guys, so I guess I'll start with the big guy here. And some of you might be recognizing what exactly is on here, or the logos. Very well packaged. Got a couple Grimmspeed stickers right here. Yeah. Red intake pipe, the spot for a MAF sensor. So you guys already know what this is. This is the Grimmspeed cold air stealth box intake. Great packaging. This is amazing. Comes with rubber sealant. It comes with your intake box. Comes with all the connections you need. Extension plug for your MAF. You got a silicone coupler here. And we got our actual intake filter. We have the big stealth box itself, which is right here. So let's give you guys a quick up close look at the product here. So what's really nice about the Grimmspeed intake, the reason there's so many intakes on the market, what's really nice about this one is that we have a stopper here that's designed to position where this filter sits. Not many other intakes have that. In terms of comparison to some other ones, you have Perrin, you got ETS intake, you got Cobb. There's so many different Mishimoto. There's so many different ones. I went with Grimmspeed because they have just been amazing in the way they develop their products. There's lots of thought that goes into it. They're super consistent. And if you look at a lot of tuners' notes, they have a lot of FAQ pages about which brands to run for different parts and things like that. Grimmspeed intake is almost always on one of those lists, where it's one of the easiest to tune with because it's very consistent, very reliable. It has the stealth box widget with it, which is going to keep your air intake temps down because you're separating the intake area from the rest of the engine bay. For people that don't run those boxes, the intake boxes around their cold air intakes, then you're not really getting a cold air intake. But the other good benefit thing about this piece right here, of course, is that it's going to be a lot less restrictive in terms of the amount of air that's getting put into the engine, a lot less restrictive in terms of heat soak, which is good because we were having big metal pieces instead of those ridged plastic polycarbonate tubing that they use for the intake from OEM. And then we got our slot for the MAF sensor. Comes with all the hardware you need, very simple, very easy. Cool. So this is a little dirty because it's not a brand new part. I got this from a guy in our group, our Subaru group. He was parting out. So he had this, this is the Grimmspeed electronic boost control solenoid. If I can get it to focus. There we go. Very simple. Replaces the stock boost controller, which is essentially very, very weak and inaccurate. What you're going to be doing is this goes onto the turbo inlet, and basically it has these 2 vacuum lines that connect to other ports. It also sends way more essentially accurate information to your ECM. So your car knows exactly what boost pressure is happening before it gets to the engine. On the intake side, it helps you control that a lot better to a very close degree compared to what the stock one does, and overall lets you have a much more reliable, consistent tune. So that's all I have to really say. All I need is a couple zip ties extra to put these vacuum lines back on. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later about what I plan on doing in terms of order of all these different mods, because now we have boost controller, we got the Grimmspeed intake, we already have the Grimmspeed catted downpipe on the car. We got one more little box here, let's open that up. So this, first off, shout out to Import Image Racing because they got this to me super quick. This is the PRL Motorsports EGR delete kit, and it has a little gasket, got some plumbing and tubing to move around, and then we have these block off plates that you're just going to be using the OEM hardware for. What exactly is an EGR? So on Subaru, let's go through, I'll unbox some of these and then talk about what the benefits are in the actual motor in a second, because this is not the only thing that came. So we have also from PRL, it was all of this kit together. It was the EGR and TGV deletes. And a lot of times people don't really know what those are. Lots of acronyms in the engine. You got EBCS, ECBS, whatever it is. You got EGR, you got AATs, you got TGVs. Lots of different acronyms being flung around. But this, from PRL, is the TGV deletes. So, milled CNC'd, very well constructed, it's really good shape too. So there you go. This is going to be replacing the stock TGV system. So together, between these two, we are improving the engine in a couple different ways. So we have our EGR delete kit, we have the TGV delete kit, and I'll show you guys in the engine bay essentially, or I'll try to explain to you guys what these parts really do. We also have 2 other pretty important pieces here that a lot of people kind of neglect to do. These are block off, they're caps for the stock harnesses, because we're deleting 2 systems in the engine bay. We don't want those stock harnesses flapping around and bouncing around. And a lot of tuners actually say that those harnesses can cause false knock from bouncing around in the engine bay. So what we're going to be doing is plugging them off with these weather sealed caps, which is going to help preserve them in case I ever need to go back to stock, which is great. But we're also going to be zip tying them up and out of the way so they're in place and not bouncing around. Okay, there's my engine bay. Let me pull one of these TGVs out. Let's talk about what exactly a TGV is. So on these modern Subarus, they have a couple different systems in them that really don't serve too much of a purpose other than to reduce emissions during certain time events or certain conditions, weather conditions, timing, getting the car started, things like that. Inside these intake manifolds, where my hand is here, and I'll do a quick zoom in so you guys can see this. There is a piece that looks just like this from Subaru. It has these big butterfly valves right in the middle, and actually I'll put them up on the screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. But right in these holes, you can see these big butterfly valves. The TGV stands for tumble generator valves, and essentially the car has a tune in them to open and close those valves at certain times, certain conditions, and their only real function, the reason they were put in there, is to reduce emissions during cold starts. On our cars in the US here, for emissions reasons, they have those just for cold starts, but the result is that you have reduced airflow into each of your cylinder heads because you have an actual piece of big flap right here that's blocking it off. The other thing that these TGV deletes will help with is actually reducing cruising knock. The stock OEM ones actually with an aftermarket tune, they actually increase or decrease the reliability and increase how volatile, different airflow, things like that. Essentially, the result is cruising knock. So you're not getting on the throttle, you're just driving normally and you get these knock events. But TGVs, better airflow, deleting pretty much an unnecessary system that's in the car, and they do add quite a bit more horsepower and reliability. Onto the EGRs, which is the exhaust gas return system. It essentially it's another emissions thing. It's taking already burnt air, right? Burnt air, combusted fuel, and it's just very hot. It's supposed to be going from the exhaust side into the exhaust, and it's circulating it back when you're off throttle, back into the engine, back into the intake track, into the intake manifold. And what this system does is it deletes that loop, so that we're closing that loop, we're blocking off the areas on the intake manifold and the exhaust portion so that none of those gases can go back into the intake. As you can imagine, for any kind of car tuning, we want as much fresh air, fresh oxygen going into the car. So the EGR system really just gets in the way of that, and it actually increases the rate at which you have carbon buildup on the tops of your valves, because it's just adding hot, burnt air into that exhaust manifold, or the intake manifold, sorry, onto the tops of the valves. So we do have our Crawford V3 AOS in the system, or in the car right here, which is going to help with reducing carbon buildup as well. So these are all going to be installed back here on the top of the engine bay, or behind the intake manifold there. Pretty simple. The only thing you have to do is you kind of have to tee off two different coolant lines. So super simple. I have some blue snip clamps, hose clamps that they look like scissors, but they clamp together and they can hold those tubes shut so I don't have coolant spraying everywhere. So I have those. But overall, let's recap. We have the Grimmspeed air intake. We have our PRL, which is the brand, our TGV deletes and the EGR delete kit. We have our Grimmspeed boost controller, and then we're going to have actually the Grimmspeed catted downpipe, which is already on the car. So overall, what do you guys think we're going to be getting for power? My personal guess, I'm going to be running 93. My personal guess is right around 315, 320 to the wheels. Brand Tuning is very, very transparent about the way they calibrate their dyno, and it's calibrated to stock numbers, which is what you want, which means that on these cars, on WRXs, which start from the factory at 268 horsepower to the crank, that means that you're losing about 20%, which is assumed, to the drivetrain, which means that these are only making around 215, 216 to the wheels on average from the factory. With my current tune, and which is the E-tune from Ambot, and the current parts on the car, I'm making right around, my guess, there's no really way to do it because it was an E-tune, but my guess would be 265 right now. So adding all these new systems, these new parts all together, I think is going to be very beneficial and should be sitting right around 315, 320 to the wheels, which if you calculate it out is 400 to the crank. So that's the goal for me, 400 to the crank. The last little bit I can add to this system to help beef it up is the last bit is the intercooler. So the top mount or the front mount intercooler to add that 20 to 30 more horsepower, and you'll be full bolt-ons minus the bolt-on turbo. So yeah, I'm really excited, really happy. One quick thing that I forgot to mention, when you're doing your EGR delete, some people do, instead of delete kit with this big block off plates and all that, they just do what they call an EGR unplug, which is just unplugging the sensor and then you tune for it. It can work, and it has the same effect because you're turning off the pump the valve that lets the exhaust gas flow from the exhaust side into the intake. But you still have that piping there. You still have inefficiencies. You have parts that you're warming up and cooling off with that coolant, which you don't need to be there. And then, more importantly, there's still that amount of hot air that's being transferred from the exhaust side to the intake manifold, even if it's being deleted, which is still going to increase carbon buildup. So just doing the unplug, it's going to be worthwhile, but less reliable. I have no problem getting the delete kit. It was I got it with the TGVs for a very good price. Again, thank you for sending that over. Import Image Racing. They have awesome shipping, really quick, fast shipping. But other than that, I tried to stick with Grimmspeed, like I said. They have really good products, really, really reliable. Tuners like them. They're super consistent. A couple other things I could be doing to the car that I have not yet is the BPV, so the bypass valve. A lot of people go with Boomba. They're really cheap and they sound pretty good, but from what I've heard, most tuners prefer either the OEM bypass valve or the Cobb bypass valve, which is kind of expensive. So I'm gonna hold off and just stick with OEM for now, and if I want to add something else later, I'll probably do that later. And then the other part is the charge pipe, which really is kind of a misconception because a lot of people assume that, you know, adding a charge pipe adds power. No, it doesn't. The intake itself is where the restriction is on that side. So the charge pipe it'll help a little bit with reducing heat soak. And it might be a slightly more consistent at higher boost temps or higher boost pressures to reduce the likelihood of the couplers blowing off the stock charge pipe, which is kind of a common issue when you're running really, kill tunes or something like that. But I don't really think I need it. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be installing all of these the day before the dyno tune, just to walk you guys through that process. I'm installing everything the day before on my own. I'm doing all the systems. All in all, it's going to be a couple hours of work for sure, but I think I can get it done if I do the right order of operations here and don't mess things up. I'm also going to be doing, also really important, these are the things that we were instructed to do from Brand Tuning, was we have to prep the car for a couple of other things. We got to make sure that everything is buttoned up, we don't have anything rattling around, so we're not getting false knock events. We need to make sure that we have only a quarter tank of gas. That's another thing we have to do, which what I plan on doing is that quarter tank needs to be, I want it to be slightly below 93 octane, so between 92 and 93 octane, so that they do the tune, and then when I run pure 93, it's just gonna be slightly more conservative, slightly safer, rather than doing pure 93 in case there's a fluctuation in gas quality in the future after the tune is done. The other thing you gotta make sure you do is fresh oil. So I'm gonna be doing an oil change. You're gonna be trying out the new Motul X Clean Plus, which is their newest top of the line oil, which is supposed to be essentially a match for the SN Plus category, which is what you want for these turbocharged DIT engines. And then also you wanna make sure your spark plugs are in good working order. Mine are OEM brand. They're relatively new in the car, so they only have 3 or 4K miles on them, which is perfect. You wanna make sure you don't have any issues with your electrical system, especially when they're tuning. You don't want any issues with the alternator. So I'm going to be making sure I don't have any of those, checking the voltage here and there throughout the weeks before moving up to the tune. So I think that is it. We did intake, we did boost controller, PRL deletes, the EGR deletes, the TGV deletes. And then we have the catted downpipe, J-pipe already on there. So yeah, I'm really excited to make some more power, and I'm really excited to have a nice, consistent, really reliable tune from Brand Tuning, because that's what he's really known for. Not blowing cars up, which is, nobody wants the car blown up. While I'm on that topic, let's talk for a minute about having a pro tune done and the whole process of kind of like listening to your tuner. The biggest issue that I've seen in the forums, or heard about issues with, you know, like a potential lawsuit or drama between tuners and the people getting the cars done and things like that. And at the end of the day, what I've noticed is that if you trust your tuner and they're the professional, right? They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones who are giving you advice. If you decide to not listen to that advice, that's completely on you. In my experience, when I get a haircut, yeah, I have a general idea of what I want, right? But I'm not gonna tell the hairstylist, no, you're doing it wrong. They're the professional here. Trust them, let them do their work, listen to what they have to say. And at the end of the day, you know, they're the ones that are making your car either reliable, or you're forcing them to do a kill tune, or forcing them to do more horsepower than they are comfortable with. So what's great about Bren is that he's super transparent about the entire process. Bren Tuning has always been kind of the go-to for the Subaru, Team Subaru 15. Everybody in the team seems to go to like him, and some of our guys are, you know, north of 400, 500 wheel horsepower, and some of them actually have built engines too. They have a couple built STIs, a couple built WRXs in the group, and they all like his tunes that are super conservative, safe, and still making really good, reliable power. At the end of the day, you should never really be numbers chasing. It's kind of a dangerous game. You kind of have to accept the fact that some engines aren't going to perform the way others do. And you always have to remember there's always going to be someone faster on the road. So don't get into the habit of chasing those numbers and keeping your head down and not listening to your tuner, what they want and what's safe for the car. Because at the end of the day, would you rather have a 350 wheel horsepower car or a 380 wheel horsepower car for 2 months and then it blows up? So that's all I got for you guys today. If you guys are excited for the tune process and you want to stay up to date with everything, you know, what we're doing, what we're planning, yeah, if you want to find out how much I actually make, how much power the dyno actually makes and reads, that will be coming up in a couple weeks, couple new videos coming out, so keep that in mind. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button, like and comment. I want to hear down below what you guys think the power numbers are going to be. So all right, talk to you guys soon.